Hi, I'm Mad. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the worst books that I read in 2024. I'm a reader second and a hater first. If I hate a book, you will know. I will be loud about it. I think that sometimes one-star reviews can help a reader find their books, and sometimes books are just bad. I think a lot of the books that I'm going to be talking about today are just bad. 1. This Wretched Valley. First of all, I'm not a big thriller reader, but also I haven't read a lot of thrillers, so a lot of them should work for me because I haven't experienced the formula of a lot of thrillers yet. However, This Wretched Valley was so bad. I loved the cover so much and I was so excited about it. However, there was no thrills, there was no twist. I feel like the core component of a thriller is a twist at the end. There was no twist, there was no surprise. I thought the beginning was also really promising. It's a creepy forest. It was really working for me, and it was just so bad, and I was so disappointed. I think that I could write a better book, and I am no writer. I'm actually quite bad at writing, but I think that I could write a better thriller than this. It was so disappointing to me. This one might actually be a really unpopular opinion, and I almost want to read it again because I'm getting gaslit, and a lot of people like this book. So this is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. So many people like this. This is like a Sherlock Holmes fantastical murder mystery with a plant magic. And we follow Din. Din is the Watson in this relationship, and we see, what's her name? We see Anna sometimes. She is such a fun character. She's so interesting. She's the Sherlock of the relationship, and we don't get to see her enough, in my opinion. I am not Din's biggest fan. They are annoying. They're very whiny, and that really grated on my nerves, and I think that's the biggest reason that I did not enjoy this book as much as I could have. And I also was expecting a lot from this because I read the Foundry Side trilogy last year, loved it. So good, one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and I was expecting that from this too. I will be picking up book 2 and probably rereading this before A Drop of Corruption comes out, but I was just really disappointed by this. I'm always on the search for a book that makes me feel the way that Buffy the Vampire Slayer did. And one of those books that's commonly recommended when you're searching for something like this is the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series. I started the first book. It was slow to get into it for me too. And again, I was expecting Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that's not really what I got. But when the main character in her internal monologue said fudge buckets while also supposing to be this super badass vampire slayer character, I was out. That was it for me, and I will not be continuing the series. It's also like a 30-book series, and I'm not willing to commit that much of my reading time to it. The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. This book could definitely be for some people. I was just confused the whole time, and it's a novella, and I DNF'd it halfway through. It's so short, and I couldn't commit my brain to that much of being so confused. But I definitely want to try Cassandra Khaw again. I think that one of her books could be for me. Neon Gods. This was my second Katie Robert and my second disappointment by Katie Robert. I was bored the whole time. I thought the characters were so flat. You would think that a dark romance Greek mythology retelling would be for me, especially Hades and Persephone, but I was bored, the characters were really flat, and I also listened to it on audiobook. The male narrator's female voice was awful. It was so awful. 6 is Gallant. This one was a 3-star for me. It was just also my first V.E. Schwab, and I was expecting The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue or A Darker Shade of Magic. I didn't know a whole lot going into this, but this was disappointing in the sense of I was expecting V.E. Schwab. It was fine, but I would not start here if you haven't read V.E. Schwab yet. I really liked everything else that I've read by them so far, though. Okay, this next book is from an author that I no longer support. I think that she's just far too problematic both in and outside of her writing, but I did read the 3rd book in the Crescent City series at the beginning of the year, and it was a dumpster fire. The plot made no sense. I feel like a lot of the characters switched up what they should, in theory, be acting like, and I hated it so bad. It was such a big disappointment for me. I've not read anything from ML Rio before this year. My first experience with ML Rio was Graveyard Shift, and oh my gosh, was that disappointing. It's a novella, and it was still a waste of my time. We follow like 6 people, and they all have the same smoking spot in this graveyard, and they see that what looks like a dug up grave, and they're trying to figure it out. The vibes are so creepy, it's so good, and then when the action starts, the book ends. And I think that that was the author's intention. It must have been. And the intention was stupid, and I hated it. I think that this could have been such a good book if it was a fully fleshed out horror book, but it was just like a waste of time. 9 is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I think that this book was so woefully mismarketed. I was expecting witches and female rage and female vengeance, but it was a very slow historical fiction. The key component for me to be disappointed and put it on my worst books of the year is if I was bored. There are so many interesting things you can do in a book, especially when it's not set in reality, and this book was so boring. This is about a woman in the future trying to figure out what to do with her life after her husband sucked, and then a woman in the past trying to run this apothecary to help women. And it could have been interesting, and it shouldn't have been marketed the way that it was. I was just so irritated throughout the whole thing. I honestly hate Reddit to the end. My last book is Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. This was grooming. The whole plot was based around grooming. It was about a child and an immortal being making a deal, and then they fall in love later when she's an adult, which does not make it okay. It was just grooming. This could have been so cool and so interesting if you would have left the part where they met when she was a child out. If they would have met when she was an adult and made this bargain. It would have been so much better. But we just keep getting these flashbacks and it's just grooming. Half the book was grooming. And it probably shouldn't have been published. Honestly, I don't know how it got published. I have another book by this author and I honestly don't know if I will be picking it up because now I'm afraid. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much, and let me know what was the most disappointing book for you in 2024.